A Gynecologist Guide, 5 Gentle and Proven Ways to Rekindle Intimacy After 60, Healthy Aging Tips. Allow me to ask you a question that very few women over the age of 60 ever hear asked out loud. Is the experience of intimacy supposed to simply fade away with age? Or is there perhaps a much deeper and more hopeful story to be told? So many of the women I have had the privilege of speaking with over the years, smart, strong, and incredibly vibrant women, have quietly confided in me that they no longer feel the same kind of spark that they once did. They often place the blame on menopause, on a new medication, or simply on the inexorable passing of time. Some even go so far as to tell themselves, with a heavy heart, that that particular and cherished part of their life is now definitively over. But here is the profound and empowering truth that I so deeply want you to know. Modern science unequivocally says that it does not have to be that way. My name is Dr. Lily Stone, and I am a gynecologist with a career spanning more than 30 years, dedicated to helping women to navigate the many and varied changes that come with the process of aging. I have listened to thousands upon thousands of women as they have shared their most private worries about a persistent and uncomfortable dryness, about a noticeable and often confusing loss of desire, and about the deep-seated fear that the experience of intimacy has quietly and irrevocably slipped out of their lives. And I want you to hear this message directly from me. Intimacy after the age of 60 is not only entirely possible, but it can also be one of the most deeply and profoundly fulfilling experiences of your life. One of my dear patients, Margaret, who was 72 years old at the time, came to see me almost in tears. She told me, "Dr. Stones, I love my husband so dearly, but I feel as if I have lost a fundamental part of myself. I truly thought that it was just over for me." Together we worked on implementing a series of small, science-backed changes in her daily life. Simple things that were designed to improve her circulation, to reduce her physical discomfort, and to help her to feel more emotionally and physically connected once again. Just a few short months later, she came back to my office with a genuine and radiant smile and said, "I feel alive again in ways that I honestly thought I had lost forever." Stories like the one of Margaret are a powerful and poignant reminder to me of just why it is that I do this important work. Because here is what the extensive and ever-growing body of scientific research is now showing us. The quality of our intimate lives is so much less about our chronological age, and so much more about the health of our blood flow, the balance of our hormones, and the depth of our emotional connection. When we are able to understand what our bodies truly and deeply need at this stage of life, we are then able to make the small and seemingly insignificant adjustments that can lead to a real and a lasting transformation. And that is exactly what today's video is all about. I am going to carefully and compassionately walk you through 5 of the most gentle and science-backed ways to be able to rekindle your intimacy in the years after the age of 60. These are not simple myths or flimsy magazine tips. These are real, tangible habits and adjustments that are fully supported by extensive medical research, ranging from the simple act of improving your circulation and your muscle strength to the profound art of nurturing a sense of closeness with your partner. And I implore you to please stay with me until the very end, because the 5th and final strategy is the one that most women will so often overlook, and yet it is the one that is so often able to make the biggest and the most profound difference in their comfort, in their confidence, and in their connection. Before we begin our important and our critical conversation together, allow me to pause for a moment and to say that if you are able to find any kind of a value in conversations like this one, conversations that are designed to honor the real and authentic experiences of women, I would be so very grateful if you would please take a moment to be able to like this particular video, to be able to subscribe to our channel, and to be able to tap on the notification bell so that you do not have to miss out on any of our future and of our important guidance. And if you happen to know a friend, a sister, or a loved one who could be able to benefit from this particular and from this important conversation, I would like to encourage you to be able to share this video with her. You never know just how much of a hope you might be able to bring into someone else's life. So let us now begin. Because the very first and the most important of all of the steps in the process of our having to reclaim our intimacy is the act of our having to understand the various and the sundry mistakes that most of the women that I have worked with over the years are so often and so frequently unknowingly and unintentionally making, and of the way in which we are able to gently and to lovingly correct them. Now, before we are able to talk about the various and the sundry solutions, let us now take a moment to be able to have an honest and an open look at the most common and the most significant of all of the mistakes that the women that I have worked with over the years are so often and so frequent making when it is able to come to the experience of their intimacy in the years after the age of 60. It is so very important for you to be able to understand that these particular and these important mistakes are not in any way your fault. They are in fact the product of so many years of a silence, of a stigma, and of a misinformation. But once you are able to see them so very clearly, you are then able to begin to be able to shift from a state of a frustration to a state of a fulfillment. The very first and the most important of all of the mistakes is that of our having to believe that the experience of our intimacy is able to fade in a natural and in a beautiful way with the passage of our time, and that there is absolutely and completely nothing that we can do about it. I am able to hear this particular and this important sentiment all of the time in the safety and in the comfort of my office. It is just a menopause, they will say. It is just what is able to happen at my age. And while it is certainly true that our levels of our estrogen are able to drop in the years after the onset of our menopause, a change that is able to work to lower our natural and our beautiful lubrication and our elasticity. The modern and the medical science is also able to show us that our blood flow, our hormone balance, and even our nerve sensitivity can all be able to be improved at any and at every age, as long as we are willing to be able to adopt the right and the proper habits. You can think of your own and your personal body as being like a beautiful and a precious garden. Yes, the soil is certainly able to change over the course of time, but if you are able to stop your watering of it, and if you are able to stop your tending of it, then of course the flowers will not be able to bloom. But that does not mean that the garden is gone. It simply means that it is now in need of a different and a unique kind of a care. All too often the women that I have worked with over the years will so often be able to close the door on their intimacy simply because no one had ever had the opportunity to be able to tell them that it could still be able to thrive. The second and the very important of all of our mistakes is that of our having to ignore the significant and the profound role of our circulation. The vast majority of all of the women that I have worked with over the years do not even realize that both of the vagina and of the clitoris are in fact a variety of vascular organs. They are so very heavily and so very completely reliant on a healthy and a robust flow of our blood, just like our hearts or our brains. When our circulation is able to slow down, our sensitivity is able to dull and our arousal is able to feel so very distant. That is the very reason why so many of the women that I have worked with over the years will so often have to say to me, I am just not able to feel it in the very same and in the very exact way that I had used to. One of my patients, a wonderful and a beautiful woman named Caroline, who was 68 years old at the time, had to come in to see me so very worried that her desire had just completely and totally vanished. But when we had been able to work on a variety of simple and of a variety of seemingly insignificant steps, such as her having to improve her hydration, her having to engage in a gentle and a restorative form of a movement, and even her having to do a certain and a specific set of a variety of stretches, she had been able to discover that her body was able to begin to respond once again. Her problem had not been a lack of a desire, it had been a lack of a circulation. And once we had been able to improve the flow of her blood, her natural and her beautiful response had been able to return to her. It is a bit like the act of our having to turn on a garden hose. If the pressure of the water is so very weak, the flow of the water will be able to sputter, no matter how much you are able to twist the nozzle. But once the pressure of the water has been restored, everything is able to work so very beautifully once again. The third and the very important of all of our mistakes is that of our having to think that the experience of our intimacy is just about a penetration. This is one of the most harmful and the most damaging of all of the myths that I have had the opportunity to see among a variety of older and of a variety of different couples. A great many of the women that I have worked with over the years have told me it is able to hurt, so we have just stopped. Or I am never able to finish, so I just have to pretend. The profound and the beautiful truth of the matter is, for the vast majority of all of the women that I have worked with over the years, their orgasm and their satisfaction are able to depend so very much more on a clitoral stimulation, on a gentle and a loving touch, and on an emotional and a psychological connection, than they are on a penetration alone. A great deal of a scientific research that has been conducted by the esteemed Cleveland Clinic and by the esteemed Mayo Clinic has been able to consistently and to universally show us that up to 7% of all of the women are able to require a direct and a precise clitoral stimulation in order to be able to reach a climax. The act of our having to ignore this particular and this important fact is a factor that is able to leave so many countless numbers of a women to be able to feel as if they are broken, when in profound and in beautiful reality, their bodies are simply and completely functioning in the very same and in the very exact way that they had been so very much designed. I am often reminded of the story of Rose, a 71-year-old patient of mine, who had to admit to me that she had been faking her pleasure for so many years, just to be able to avoid her having to disappoint her partner. When I had been able to explain to her that her body was in fact functioning in the very same and in the very exact way that it had been so very much designed to, she had to cry, not from a sadness, but from a relief. For the very first and for the very earliest of all of the time, she had been able to realize that there was absolutely and completely nothing that was wrong with her. She had simply and completely been in need of a variety of different and of a variety of unique forms of an intimacy in order to be able to feel so very satisfied. These three and of these important and of these significant mistakes of our having to believe that our intimacy is over, of our having to ignore our circulation, of our having to focus only on a penetration, are all able to work to create a variety of unnecessary and of a variety of unwanted barriers. They are able to lead so many of the women that I have worked with over the years to a state of a frustration, of a silence, and so often of a giving up. But the wonderfully and the profoundly encouraging news in all of this is this one. Each and every one of them can be so very gently and so very lovingly and so very effectively corrected. And that is what we are now going to be exploring next in our journey together. Because once you are able to understand the science, you are then able to begin to make some small and some seemingly insignificant but so very powerful and so very effective changes that are able to work to bring back a sense of a comfort, of a pleasure, and of a connection, without you having to feel in any way forced or artificial. Please stay with me, because in just a brief moment, I will be sharing with you the 5 of the most gentle and of the most science-backed of all of the solutions that you are so easily and so conveniently able to start to practice in order to be able to bring the experience of an intimacy back into your life in the years after the age of 6. And I can promise you that our number 5 is one that the vast majority of all of the women that I have worked with over the years will so often and so frequently never have to think about, and yet it is the one that is so often and so frequently able to change everything. Now that we have had the wonderful and the profound opportunity to be able to uncover the most common and the most significant of all of the mistakes, let us now focus our attention on what it is that you are able to do. Because the profound and the beautiful truth of the matter is that the experience of an intimacy in the years after the age of 60 does not have to require any kind of a drastic and an invasive change, or of a variety of miracle and of a variety of unproven cures. What it is that it is so very much in need of are a variety of small and of a variety of seemingly insignificant and of a variety of science-backed adjustments that are able to work to nurture our bodies and that are able to work to invite a sense of a connection, a variety of gentle and of a variety of loving steps that many of my own and of my personal patients have been able to find to be so very life-changing. One of the most powerful and the most effective of all of the ways of being able to restore our intimacy is by being able to improve our circulation. Without having a steady and a consistent flow of our blood, our arousal is able to feel so very distant, and our bodies are able to seem so very unresponsive. The wonderfully and the profoundly good news in all of this is that our circulation can be able to be improved each and every day with a variety of simple and of a variety of seemingly insignificant habits. A glass of a water in the morning, a series of a short and of a simple and of a short walks, or a few and a simple and a short and a gentle stretches that are able to work to open our hips and our pelvis can all be a factor that is able to make a very real and a very tangible difference. Even just 1 or 2 and a simple and a short minutes of a pelvic tilt or of a light and a gentle Kegel exercise can be a factor that is able to wake up our muscles and to be able to increase our supply of our blood. Once the system is able to be so very much flow, everything else is able to work so much more smoothly, and the wonderful and the profound benefits are able to extend so very far beyond the experience of our intimacy, as our energy is able to feel so much steadier, our bladder control is able to improve, and our bodies are able to feel so much more alive. Another of the very important and of the very critical of all of the changes is that of our having to make a comfort a non-negotiable part of our life. The experiences of a pain or of a dryness during the act of an intimacy is one of the biggest and the most significant of all of the reasons why the women that I have worked with over the years will so often have to pull away. But it is not something that has to be accepted as being a normal and an expected part of our future. A variety of over-the-counter and of a variety of seemingly insignificant lubricants and of a variety of natural and of a variety of beautiful moisturizers, and especially those that are so very much recommended by our doctors, can be a factor that is able to make a dramatic and a profound difference in our lives. for some of the women that I have worked with over the years, a variety of local and of a variety of topical estrogen treatments or of a variety of alternatives that are being prescribed by their healthcare provider are able to be instrumental in helping them to be able to restore an elasticity and a comfort to their tissue. I so often and so frequently have to remind my patients that if their shoes were so very much too tight, they would not be able to keep on walking in a state of a pain. They would be able to adjust them until they were able to feel so very right. Our bodies are so very much able to deserve that very same and that very exact respect in our intimacy. It is also so very much able to be instrumental in helping us to be able to expand the very way in which we are able to think about an intimacy itself. A great many of the couples that I have worked with over the years will so often feel so very much pressured to be able to believe that a sex must always and completely have to mean a penetration, but the experience of an intimacy is so much more than that. It is a gentle and a loving touch, a kissing, a skin-to-skin closeness, a mutual and a beautiful massage, or a simply and a completely lying all together in a state of a warmth. These particular and these important forms of a connection are able to work to reduce our stress hormones, to be able to release an oxytocin, and to be able to keep the spark so very much alive even when a penetration is not so very much possible or desired. One of my patients, a wonderful and a beautiful woman named Elaine, who was 70 years old at the time, had to say to me that once she and her husband had been able to shift their focus from a performance to a connection, their bond had been able to deepen. She had said to me, it had stopped feeling like a duty and it had started to feel just like a love once again. Another of the very gentle and of the very loving of all of the shifts that is so often and so frequently able to help is that of our having to use a positioning to our own and to our personal advantage. A variety of small and of a variety of seemingly insignificant changes in our angle can be a factor that is able to make our intimacy so much more comfortable and so much more satisfying. For example, the act of our having to place a pillow beneath our hips can be a factor that is able to reduce our discomfort and that is able to increase our contact in the very areas that are able to matter the most. A variety of side-lying positions are so often and so frequently able to provide us with both of a comfort and of a closeness, without us having to experience any kind of a strain. It is not about a complexity, it is about an alignment. Even just a few and a simple and a short degrees of a tilt can be a factor that is able to transform a tension into a relaxation. And finally, it is so very important for us to never and completely have to underestimate the significant and the profound role of our nourishment. We do not so often and so frequently have to connect a diet with an intimacy, but the two are so very much linked. A variety of foods that are so very rich in a variety of antioxidants, of an omega-3 fatty acid and of a variety of phytoestrogens, like a salmon, a walnut, a flaxseed and a berry are all able to work to support our circulation, our hormone balance, and our tissue health. The act of our having to stay so very much hydrated throughout our day is able to be instrumental in helping our skin, our joints, and yes, our vaginal tissues, to be able to remain so very resilient. I am often reminded of one of my patients, a wonderful and a beautiful woman named Martha, who had to swap her sugary and of an unhealthy breakfast pastry for a delicious and a nutritious yogurt with a flaxseed and with a variety of delicious blueberries. She had come back to see me just a few and a simple and a short weeks later, and she had said to me, I did not just feel so very much better overall, I had actually been able to feel so much more alive in the bedroom too. These 5 and of a variety of gentle and of a variety of loving adjustments, of a better and of a more efficient circulation, of a comfort, of a redefining of our intimacy, of a mindful and of a beautiful positioning, and of a nourishment, are all able to work all together in a beautiful and in a profound synergy in order to be able to create an internal environment in which our intimacy is able to thrive once again. The very best and the most wonderful part of all of this is that you do not have to do them all at once. You can choose to start with just one, to be able to let it become a part of your daily and your regular life, and then you will be able to add another one. Over the course of time, these small and these seemingly insignificant shifts are able to work to create a powerful and a profound ripple effect. And now I would like to be able to take you so much deeper, because while it is certainly true that a variety of solutions are so very important, sometimes what is able to inspire us the most is a real and an authentic story or a vivid and a beautiful image something that is able to be instrumental in helping us to be able to see what it is that is so very much possible. I am able to know that these particular and these important changes might be able to sound so very simple, but sometimes it is the smallest and the most seemingly insignificant of all of the adjustments that are able to bring about the most profound and the most beautiful of all of the results. I would like to share a story with you that has been able to stay with me for so many years. Rose, a 72-year-old woman, had come to see me so very quietly and so very much ashamed. She had told me that the experience of an intimacy with her husband had become so very much almost and completely impossible. She had been able to feel a sense of a dryness. She had been able to feel so very disconnected, and she had thought that her body had just simply and completely shut down. Together we had been able to work so very gently, as we had been able to add a hydration, as we had been able to introduce a daily and a regular walk, and as we had been able to explore a sense of a comfort with a variety of lubricants and with a variety of positioning. At her next and of her subsequent visit, she had been able to smile in a way that I had not been able to see before. She had said to me, "Stones, I had never and completely thought that this particular and this important part of my life could be able to come back, but I am able to feel as if I have been given a second and a beautiful chance." Then there had been Elaine, who at the age of 69 had been so very frustrated by an occasional and a sporadic leaking, and by the very fear of her having to lose her control. She had had to confess to me that it had been a factor that had been able to make her to have to avoid a closeness, because she had been so very worried about an embarrassment. We had been able to start with just one and a simple and a short minute of a pelvic and of a restorative exercise each and every morning, which we had been able to combine with a variety of simple and of a variety of calming breathing techniques in order to be able to relax her muscles. Within just a few and a simple and a short weeks, she had told me, "I am no longer having to plan my life around the bathroom. I am now able to plan it around a joy." That particular and that important shift had been able to give her the courage to be able to reconnect with her partner, and the experience of her intimacy had begun to feel so very safe once again. Stories like the ones of a Rose and of an Elaine are able to serve as a powerful and a poignant reminder to me that an intimacy is not something that is able to be lost with an age. It is only something that is able to change its shape. And when we are able to learn how to be able to care for our bodies in a so much more of a different and of a unique way, a variety of new and of a variety of exciting possibilities are able to open up for us. I so often and so frequently have to tell my patients to be able to think of their bodies as being like a beautiful and a precious garden. A garden in the spring is so very lush and so very effortless, but as the seasons are able to change, the soil is able to become so much drier. The plants are able to require so much more of a deliberate and of a consistent care. You are not able to simply and completely abandon the garden just because it is no longer the very same and the very exact one. With a water, with a sunlight, and with a gentle and a loving tending, it can still be able to bloom so very beautifully, season after season. The experience of an intimacy is exactly and completely like that. It is able to require an attention and not a resignation. With a care even so very much later in our lives, it can be able to flourish in a variety of ways that are able to surprise you. And here is the most important and the most critical of all of the truths of all. The experience of an intimacy is not about a performance. It is not a checklist or a competition. It is about a connection, about a trust, about a curiosity, and about a kindness. When you are able to allow yourself to be able to explore so very slowly, to be able to laugh all together, and to be able to listen to your own and to your personal body instead of your having to force it, the experience of an intimacy is able to become so much richer and so much more satisfying than it had ever been able to be before. If you have ever had the opportunity to think that that particular and that important part of my life is over, I would like you to be able to remember the smile of a Rose, the relief of an Elaine, and the garden that is able to continue to be able to bloom, because the potential for a connection and for a closeness is still so very much within you. It is only able to ask you to be able to listen, to be able to nurture, and to be able to give it the precious and the beautiful chance to be able to grow. And in just a brief moment, I will be able to bring everything all together with the key and the most important and the most critical of all of the lessons that we have been able to explore today, along with one and a final and a last and an important encouragement that I so very much want every and a single and an individual woman who who is over the age of 60 to be able to carry with her. We have now had the wonderful and the profound opportunity to be able to walk through a journey all together today, and before we are able to close, I would like to be able to bring it all back into a focus, because a change does not have to come from our having to hear an information just once. It is able to come from our having to remember, from our having to practice, and from our having to believe that our health and that our intimacy are still able to matter a great deal. The very first and the most important of all of our reminders is that an intimacy does not have to fade simply and completely because of our age. What is truly and completely able to change is our circulation, our hormones, and our body's own and its personal sense of its comfort, and each and every one of those particular and of those important factors can be able to be so very much supported. The second and the very important of all of our reminders is that a comfort is not a luxury, it is in fact an essential and a non-negotiable part of our lives. When you are able to respect your own and your personal body enough to be able to use the right and the proper supports of a lubrication or of a variety of treatments, you are able to open the door to a closeness that is completely and totally without any kind of a pain. The third and the very important of all of our reminders is that an intimacy is not able to be defined by a penetration, a touch, a connection, a laughter, a kissing, and a tenderness are just as vital and so often and so frequently so much more rewarding. The fourth and the very important of all of our reminders is that a variety of small and of a variety of seemingly insignificant adjustments in our positioning can be a factor that is able to create some very big and some very significant differences in both our comfort and in our pleasure. And the fifth and the very important of all of our reminders is that the way in which you are able to nourish your own and your personal body each and every day through a food, through a hydration, and through a movement is able to play a very direct and a very significant role in how alive you are able to feel in your moments of your closeness. Each and every one of these particular and of these important lessons may be able to sound so very simple, but when they are all taken together, they are able to form a powerful and a profound truth. Your body is still completely and totally capable of an intimacy, of a joy, and of a connection. You are not broken, and you are not alone. I am able to think once again of a Margaret, of a Rose, of an Elaine, and of so many of the other and of the various and of the sundry women who had to walk into my office so very much believing that their intimate lives were over. They had been able to leave with a sense of a hope, and over the course of time they had been able to rediscover a part of themselves that they had thought that they had so very much vanished, and if they could be able to do it, so can you. So here is my one and my last and my final and my important encouragement to you. Please choose just one and a single and an individual small and a seemingly insignificant step to be able to begin with tomorrow. Maybe it will be a glass of a water before your day is able to start. Maybe it will be one and a single and an individual minute of a gentle and of a restorative pelvic movement. Or maybe it will be a conversation with your partner in which you are able to express what it is that is truly and completely able to feel so very good for you. One and a single and an individual step is all that it is able to take in order to be able to remind your own and your personal body that you are still so very much listening to it. If this particular and this important message has been able to speak to you, I would be so very grateful if you would please take a moment to be able to like this particular video, to be able to subscribe to our channel, and to be able to tap on the bell so that you will not have to miss out on the very next and the very important one. And I would be so very happy to be able to hear from you in the comments section below. Which of these 5 and of these gentle and of these loving strategies is able to feel the most doable for you right now? Your own and your personal story may just be the very thing that is able to provide the encouragement that another woman is so very much in need of. And if you are able to know a friend, a sister, or a loved one who might be so quietly and so silently wondering if their intimacy is gone forever, I would like you to be able to share this particular video with her. You might just be able to give her back a piece of her hope. And before we are able to close, I would like to be able to remind you that this particular video is for an educational and for an informational purpose only. It is not able to be a replacement for a medical and a professional advice. Each and every one of our bodies is so very unique. If you are in the process of experiencing a pain, a variety of significant and of a variety of substantial changes, or if you have any of a variety of personal and of a variety of unique concerns, I would like you to please be able to consult with your own and with your personal healthcare provider. Your own and your personal well-being is so very much able to deserve a personalized and a unique form of a care.